Alright guys, today we're gonna go over a Tornado Primalist, which I use for a starter build planning on 1.2. So for the next patch, by the way, I am back to doing early content. Very excited for the next patch that last Epoch is getting. And yeah, so I started playing again. I started another Primalist leveling run, and so this time we are going on Tornado. So we are a Shaman Tornado. You guys might know me for Thorn Totem in the past with Spriggan form and just spamming Thorn Totem and Storm Totem. If I compare this build to the Thorn Totem Spriggan build, this I think wins by a fairly large margin once you get past level 50. I would still level this build. Okay, let's go straight into the gameplay actually. I'll just show one map. This is an amazing build. Lots of range, lots of damage, lots of clear. Lots of tankiness. This character is about 2 days old if you count the hours played. 3 days if you count like the actual days that I've played this character for. But as you can see, the idea is just spamming Tornado. Your Tornadoes cast Storm Bolts, which are scaled off of the Gathering Storm tree. And yeah, it just clears everything. I've cleared Aberrot with this. I've cleared all 10 Harbingers. It's just a walk in the park to play. And this is a very special build because this is one build where you will have pretty much all of your health pool covered by Endurance Threshold with the Mountain Boots. And the Mountain Boots reduces your mana cost as well. So you are sort of incentivized to not move and stay in one place. As you can see, my Endurance Threshold here is going up quite significantly. And as you get into the end game with end game gear, you'll be able to get this to cover your entire health pool. So we'll go over how this plays. I can show also a Aberrot kill, I guess, here. Let's go ahead and show this. So this was my Aberrot kill yesterday after, like, you know, this is kind of like day one gear where I have, you know, a few of my items with LP. Not all the slams that I want. I have some LP slams that are just completely useless. I have maybe like half of the gear that I would want in at the start of the end game, but still doing fairly well. Pretty tanky, decent damage, amazing, just amazing quality of life. Just spamming Tornadoes, and the range of the bolts on Tornado have insane range. They have like basically screen wide AoE. And then if you invest even more points into the range on the Tornado tree, then this range becomes basically, you know, 2 screens away, 3 screens away. If you also invest into the points in the range in the Gathering Storm tree, then maybe you get 4 screens away. I'm kind of exaggerating here, but you get the idea. You get like insane coverage. So pretty much everything on the Aberrot fight, you are able to tank without amazing gear. There are a few things that you do not want to tank though. It's the big straight line that is a dot on the ground. You don't want to stand in this. You also don't want to stand in anything that reduces your resistances, right? So regular Aberrot mechanics. But for the most part, this tanks everything. The pizza slams, the, you know, pretty much everything. So overall, amazing build. Cannot recommend more. This is going to be, I'm going to be heavily thinking about starting this in 1.2 because this is just an amazing build that starts with nothing. All you need to get started with this build is mana regen. So mana regen on rings, mana regen maybe on belt, on amulet, on your relic. Because of course Tornado costs a lot of mana, but there are some mana efficiency nodes in Tornado that you can use early on to try to reduce this cost, as well as if you're using a wand or a staff, they can reduce your mana cost up to 5. Even a scepter has tier 7. If you get a tier 7 mana cost on a scepter, you get -5 mana cost on it, but that is much harder to get than on a wand or staff, which is just the implicit of it, right? So you want to get your mana down as much as possible to be able to spam Tornadoes and just not move. And yeah, just basically you become the human Tornado. So yeah, this is my Aberrot kill. As you'll be able to see, I got some pretty crazy loot. I've also started playing COF for the first time, and well, it's technically not the first time I've ever made a COF character, but it's the first time I've actually played it for more than like a day or so. And I'm gonna tell you guys, I've played MG all along in the past for every single patch, and COF I think is the better option for a league start. Of course, if you want to trade, go MG. If you want to find loot that is absolutely crazy, go COF. Like I don't know, the dopamine hits are absolutely crazy. And here you can see what I got at the end here. You will see the 2LP Nihilis. Absolute craziness. I don't know. I found so many good items on these past 2 days. So yeah, that is pretty much the build. Yeah, that face, all right. That is pretty much the build. So now that we've covered the basics of the gameplay and everything like that, let's go straight into the details of the build. So here I have prepared a planner for you guys. So there's like a starter planner with like just basic gear. You get mana regen on your staff. This just shows you what kind of stats that you might want on it. On every single piece of gear. I have left some slots open for resistances because, you know, I can't tell you exactly get this res on this piece of gear. This is just starter gear. One thing that I will tell you guys is that the bases are very important. So even if you have like an exalted piece of gear that is on the wrong base, I would absolutely swap out and go on the correct bases, even if it's just with tier 5 affixes. So the most important ones are going to be your gloves with insane armor, the belt with armor, the helm with 3% damage leeched on hit. You want to get some sort of leech, because if you don't have this helmet, the only other source of leech that you have is the 4% health leech on crit, which is something, but the more leech you have, the tankier you will be. You could also go for a bleeding heart, but yeah, I did not go for a bleeding heart on this specific version. So this is like the starter planner. All you get is like mana regen everywhere, and then you get the reduced mana cost from Foot of the Mountain. These boots you can get in the Lightless Arbor dungeon, and they reduce your mana cost when you're standing still. Very good stuff. So you want to get close to like 30 mana regen. Here I have more just because it counts all the rolls, but you will not have this as a starter character. You'll have maybe, you know, you'll start with basically nothing, and then as you get your tier 5 affixes, you'll grow to like 20, 25, 30 mana regen. 30 is a pretty good spot to be honest. And you can always mess with your skills to get more or less cast speed on Tornado, for example, and stuff like that. But we'll go over the skills very shortly. I just want to show an example of the endgame planner. Here I'm using Wrong Warp. Wrong Warp gives you increased damage based on your movement speed. This is one option. The other option that you could also have is going to be the Mad Alchemist Ladle. Mad Alchemist Ladle is very nice because it gives you automatic frailty and automatic shred. So you don't need to worry about this on your other pieces of gear. And you don't really care about the intelligence scaling for the cast speed. You really only care about the more damage. And it also has only -3 mana cost instead of -5 on the Wrong Warp. So for the endgame setup, Wrong Warp or Mad Alchemist Ladle, Wrong Warp will be easier on your mana. And then we go with Tempest Maw. You can see here that we go from doing a staff to dual wielding. Dual wielding will increase your damage greatly, but you take 9% more damage when you are dual wielding. So, you know, it's up to you. Do you feel like you have enough damage and you just want more tankiness? Or you want to go with like this endgame setup? I do recommend going dual wielding. It will feel much better. You also can get shred on your axe. So, yeah, it is quite nice here. Tempest Maw. Basically, huge item, mainly because the melee damage that you get on it also gives you flat damage for your bolts, thanks to Tempest Weapon here. So for every 3 melee damage, you get 2 flat spell damage. Yeah, that's just amazing. Again, we're using the Leech Helm. Wall of Nothing is amazing because you get basically all of your health converted to Endurance Threshold. And so that endurance threshold, when you're not moving, right, you're just spamming tornadoes, you're generating ward with the Wall of Nothing and with Twisted Heart, which converts your health to ward, and then you get an incredible endurance threshold. So you get an amazing amount of ward with an amazing amount of health and crazy leech. So it just makes for a very, very tanky build. Yeah, I've been really impressed with Wall of Nothing, and this is like the only combo where I would really see it really shine is when you have basically your entire health pool covered by Endurance Threshold. So that's it. Another nice tech, Imbued Eye of Storm. The increased lightning damage per active Maelstrom. When you are playing, you're essentially holding down Warcry and casting Maelstrom every once in a while. So you'll be able to get maybe like 30 stacks of Maelstrom when you're mapping and stuff. So those 30 stacks give you an incredible amount of increased damage. So that will make it, that's basically Eye of Storms and Wrong Warp are your two main sources of increased damage, since Gathering Storm have attunement scaling giving you flat damage. And so yeah, that's the way that you scale your increase. Attunement is the way that you increase your flat, and you get crit multi wherever you can on your gear. So very high priority on your weapons, crit multi. Very high prio on the amulet and relic as well is crit multi. Everywhere else is pretty much attunement or spell damage and stuff like that. Of course, mana regen enough to be able to spam it. So I went for an endgame setup with Jorah Star Dial. Of course, you could use other things. If you're like much further in the endgame and you want to push high corruption, you could go for red rings. But Jorah Star Dial has an interesting mechanic, which when you use a movement skill, it triples the stats on the item. This item has up to 72% spell damage, mana spent gain as ward, and it has also implicit mana regen. If you slam on here a tier 7 mana regen, you can kind of ignore all of the other rolls of mana regen on your gear and just get an amazing amount of mana regen every so often. You will use your, basically, you will at times evade, right? So you're playing like this, you're the human tornado, you're a turret, you don't move, you get good endurance threshold, and then when you use your dash like this, you will get crazy amount of mana regen, which will refill your mana pool. You will have to reposition at times. You won't want to tank everything. So Jorah Star Dial not only gives you damage, but also helps you sustain your mana very, very efficiently. So I think this is one of the best builds that I've seen using Jorah Star Dial, actually. Because we're really using all of these stats on it. There's no stat that we're not using. So just amazing for the build. Of course, you could go with red rings if you want to go even further. Belt, as I said, belt and gloves. Insane armor. These are like 100% would recommend just swapping to a good base and then starting to try to get your exalted rolls on it. Health, very important. Hybrid health, increased health. Mana regen here. You could also go for lightning damage. You could also go for ward and element cleansing. But we do have a cleanse with Warcry, which procs 2 times per Warcry, so it's actually not bad. Then we have the Eternal Gauntlet, again, armor mitigation also applies to damage over time. People are sleeping on this. Dots are very dangerous in the game, and in 1.2, we have been spoiled with getting champion enemies, possessed enemies. So these are just going to be stronger enemies, and possessed enemies are supposed to be enemies that get a multiplier of their health and damage. So I mean, this is gonna make, like, the game is not getting easier. You will want to mitigate damage, and I strongly suggest going for strong bases for this. Frailty is extremely important. If you do not have frailty on your gear, I would go for frailty on the on your blessing here instead of the flat armor until you get frailty on gear. Then you will be fine with swapping out to the flat armor here. So again, regular stuff on gloves, hybrid health. Here you go with cast speed. You need to be careful with your cast speed because depending on the amount of mana regen that you have, you might go out of mana if you have too much cast speed. So there's multiple ways that we can prevent this. So there's cast speed on the gloves, which you can maybe just not get. There's Frenzy on Maelstrom that you can unspec from. There's some cast speed on Tornado. You know, like, if you have too many mana problems, just ignore cast speed for a little bit and put it back later on. You lose a little bit of DPS, but you will gain a lot of quality of life. Twisted Heart converts a portion of your health to ward. Just amazing extra layer of tankiness, since you will leech your health back with your leech on crit and your helm. This just gives you an extra layer of defense. And we've already talked about Foot of the Mountain. Most important thing on this build for defense, get your endurance to 60%. Most of your defense is endurance, whether it is with the foot of the mountain or with your passives on this one here. You have additional endurance threshold per stack of Maelstrom. If you have 30 stacks of Maelstrom, this is 600 endurance threshold. So this is just absolutely amazing. Strongly would recommend. So I think that pretty much covers the gear. One of the things on the idols is the chance to summon a Thorn Totem on hit. Since you have so many tornadoes, so many hits, you will always have this active. So you will always have 2 of your totems active, even if you're not spec'd into Thorn Totem here. So what this enables is you to get a lot of armor. So you will get 200%, 200 armor with your totem, and you get not only the bonus from being a shaman that gives you 50% LA res, so you don't have to worry about LA res at all, because you have this as well, which gives you 15% res per totem. So armor, res, fixed with the totem, just amazing. The rest is just basic stuff. Fix your res. Of course, if you have like other setups of gear, you can go for something else, but like fix your res with your idols, very important for survivability. And then get some crit avoidance. Since your Spriggan gives you up to, I think it's 72%. Yeah, it's 72% crit avoidance. If you have one perfectly rolled idol, you'll be at 99%, which is quite annoying. I wish we had some other ways to get crit avoidance. But you can use 2 of these, or you can seal something on your gear, or, you know, depending on what your setup is, get your capped crit avoidance, because that's the easiest thing to do on this Primalist. So that pretty much covers that. Let's go into the skills now. So the main thing that you get here is, let's start with Gathering Storm. Gathering Storm, you want to go for this one here, Tempest Weapon. Gathering Storm deals spell damage per 3 melee damage on your equipped axe or mace. So this will make Tempest Maw give you a lot more benefits than if you did not have that one. So with this, Tempest Maw is basically a huge weapon that you can actually dual wield with something else, right? So this is one of the most important one when you are dual wielding. When you are starting out, you see that in the starter planner, I don't have this because I'm using a staff. If you have a big axe while leveling or a big mace, you might want to use it. But if you're using a staff, you don't need it. So save these points for something else. Afterwards, we just get all the damage multipliers. We get the lightning penetration here. We get the damage multiplier with the repeat chance. We get this damage multiplier. We get the, here, the one thing that is very nice is that you get crit chance per Maelstrom. So with every stack of Maelstrom, which will have like, you know, 30 plus, you get 1% base crit chance. So that makes it that you don't need a lot of increased crit to cap your crit. So yeah, so this is pretty much the basic Stormbolt's tree. Go for this node, go for all damage multipliers. With the rest of your points, just go into the into the area so that your Stormbolts target enemies from further away. Since your tornadoes will spread out a little bit, the more area that you have, the better it is. So that is it for Gathering Storm. Gathering Storm is going to be cast by Tornado, thanks to this node. So your Tornado casts Stormbolt every 2 seconds. Well, you can increase the frequency with this one. I would absolutely rush 1 point here and then all of the point into the mana efficiency. I would go in here before going for the lightning frequency, just because this will make it so much easier for you to like get good quality of life and sustain your mana. So start with this, then focus on the lightning frequency, and then go for all of the other multipliers, which you get the double cast chance here, and then you get a tornado last longer so that it can cast Stormbolts for longer. With the rest of your points, you can either, there's a few options you can do. You can go for cast speed here, as I said earlier, or if you don't have enough mana regen for this, you can go for even more range on your bolts. This node adds a lot of range, so I would really, you know, if you want to mess around with it, go ahead. But yeah, it's either range, this, or if you want to have better visual clarity, you could go with like a +4 tornado on your body armor and go for stationary tornadoes. But yeah, that is a lot of points. That is a lot of points. So that is it for tornado. Let's go with, okay, Summon Spriggan. Summon Spriggan, there's a few things you can do. First of all, this is a minion. This minion will sometimes die. If you do not want it to die, you can snapshot him. What do I mean about snapshotting is that whenever you summon a minion, you can have gear on you that have increased health, minion dodge, minion health regen, affixes like that to help him survive. You summon him, and then you swap back into your own gear, and he keeps his stats for as long as he survives, and you are in the monolith area, right? If you swap from one area to another completely, he loses those stats. But if you summon him with something like, if you're just blasting monolith, you're blasting echoes, and you summon him with some good increased minion health gear, and then you swap back to your gear, he will keep it for the entirety of all of the echoes that you do in that monolith. So now that that's out of the way, you get this with base crit chance and crit avoidance. So this is a nice buff for your base crit, and crit avoidance is very important for your defense. You also get spell damage, you also get dodge rating per attunement, and the very interesting thing here is that you get a lot of increased dodge from your Maelstrom stacks that you have over 30 of. So insane flat dodge, insane increased dodge, and then you convert all of this dodge to endurance threshold with the boots of the mountain. That just makes for a very, very nice combo. And then you use all that endurance threshold to get ward decay threshold, and then generate ward with Twisted Heart. It just all fits perfectly well together. So that's what you use it for. The rest of the points are for tankiness that you go into the armor and the health here. Next up, we have Maelstrom. Maelstrom you use for different things. You use, first of all, Beneath the Waves so that you get stacks over time. So when you use Maelstrom, you see that I'll gather some Lagon Somber stacks. And then when these are at 3 stacks, I cast it once to get many stacks of Maelstrom. So with only one cast, I get more than 1 stack, right? So this is the first place I would go. The next thing I would do, like oftentimes I go for haste and frenzy because you know it's movement speed, damage. But on this particular build, I would 100% recommend going for Essence of Debris first. You get global increased stun chance per stack. This will make your mapping amazing. You'll get over 1,000% stun chance. Nothing will move. As I got to 300 corruption with like basically anything that isn't a boss never moves. Your first Shades of Oribus, never moving. Nothing's moving. Like it's completely OP with the amount of Maelstrom stacks that we get. So 100% would recommend going straight for Essence of Debris. You might be tempted to go for Power of the Storm, since this does interact with Storm Bolts from Gathering Storm. But since we have so many tornadoes, and this is only 1 cast every second, this is very, very low value. So for the rest of the points, I would go probably Haste, Frenzy, the duration for sure, and the increased dodge rating per Maelstrom. So this is pretty much this tree. And then the Warcry tree. Warcry is doing a couple of different things. First of all, Warcry is immunity. You are invulnerable for 1 second after Warcry. Warcry has a pretty low cooldown as well, with one node that will take. It has a 5-second cooldown. So yeah, this is just invulnerability every 5 seconds. Plus, you cast it again when it's on cooldown. So you get basically 2 Warcries for the price of 1. So 2 seconds. And you get a bunch of increased crit chance. This is going to get you to cap crit on your Gathering Storms. So you get a lot of crit chance. Early on, I went for Cold Bolts, and I had 250% increased cold damage from it. So that was a good way to get some very early cold damage. Yeah, eventually you do unspec from this. You could go for a cold version of this. This is a lighting version of a Lightning Tornado. So yeah, this is what I'm doing. But it's a good increase if you want to go for the cold version. This node makes it the cooldown much lower, but it no longer stun, freeze, or fear. So you no longer have a CC on it. But it doesn't really matter because you are invulnerable for 1 second, which anyways, the monsters will be stunned permanently with Essence of Debris. So we don't really care about this. And then we go for the Maelstrom stacks on use. So this is going to generate a lot of Maelstrom stacks, plus your manual cast of Maelstroms. And so this is the way that we get up to 30 stacks. You also get a nice cleanse on it, which is just amazing for general survivability, especially on Aberoth. If you're fighting Aberoth and you get Frailty of Aberoth, which reduces your leech, it reduces your... it basically reduces everything, right? It reduces your damage that you deal. This is just amazing. So I think we've covered all of the skills. We covered Tornado, Gathering Storm, Warcry, Sprig, and Maelstrom. Now let's go into the passive. Passives, there's a couple of ways you could go into this. I usually like to go into damage, but since this is a build that requires you to like stay stationary and tank a lot of things, I also like to go into tankiness sometimes, believe it or not. Believe it or not, okay? I don't only play ZHP Ballista. Sometimes I like to get some tankiness. So I did not go for some spell damage nodes. I went for more health, more armor, stuff like that, and less damage taken. It's up to you. This is not like this is not a one and like passive tree. You must use this passive tree or you're doing it wrong. It's like passives are always up to you. Whether you want to go into more tankiness or more damage. But there are some nodes that are just no-brainers, like attunement, right? So here I'm grabbing attunement. This one is for tankiness. You could go for more spell damage. Of course, you want to dual wielding. You take 9% more damage while dual wielding, which kind of sucks, but it is what it is. It's so much more damage. So this is the only thing that I did on this build to get more damage. Increased health and less damage taken. Next, of course, you want to unlock Tornado on your Shaman tree, but you also want to get your Summon Spriggan early to get your increased base crit. So on this tree, you get your endurance, you get attunement and strength. Strength, don't overlook strength. It increases your armor. For every point of strength, you get 4% increased armor. So this is going to increase your survivability a lot, as well as attunement that it gives you flat damage for your storm bolts. So you go with this, 1 extra fill point for health and mana, and then we go for cast speed, and we go for the crit chance and the health leech on crit. Extremely important if you want to sustain. Health leech is mandatory. On the Beastmaster tree, less damage taken from nearby enemies. If you are a Primalist and you do not take this, I think you are doing it wrong, except if you're playing a ZHP Primalist for some reason. And then you go here. Shaman tree. Of course, being a Shaman gives us plus 10 attunement and 50 LA res while you control a totem. So we've already covered this previously. We are getting free elemental res and a lot of physical res as well. But here we're taking attunement and penetration. Just amazing. Armor. We go for more attunement and endurance threshold and stun avoidance per attunement. Since we're stacking attunement, this is very, very good. 2 points here just to get to the shared spell lightning damage and the shared spell lightning pen per 5 attunement. So this is another good reason why attunement is so good to stack. Resistances when we have a totem. More attunement and mana regen per attunement. So this is going to help you fix your mana more easily. Then you get health and mana and endurance threshold per Maelstrom. These 4 points are amazing for survivability. 3 points here. This helps a little bit. Direct spell cast have a chance to cast Stormbolts. But this is, again, not a lot of damage since you have so many tornadoes. You go into 5 points here. You could go for more, right? But with the 5 points, your indirect Stormbolts have a chance to be cast again after 25 seconds. 20% chance to double cast is basically a 20% more multiplier, right? If you have a 20% chance to cast it again. And then you have additional health and armor. So again, all of the health and armor nodes that you see on this tree could be replaced by more damage if you want to get more damage. So I think I've covered everything. Did I miss something, guys? Tell me in chat, but I think we covered those passives, skills, equipment. We went over the idols, we went over the equipment. Again, this is not like the only way to play this. This is the way that I've played it right now, but it's pretty good setup. You could go for red rings if you want to be more tanky. You could go for Mad Alchemist Ladle to save up on frailty, on shred, and it would cost a little bit more mana, but you might be fine as well. You could go for other amulets, but then you lose a lot of damage with your increased damage per active Maelstrom. Yeah, this is like an amazing build. 10 out of 10 would recommend. Let's finish this on another map here, and we'll be good to go. Next build that I'm going to be starting, guys, is going to be Crows. I think Crows might be an absolute giga build for damage. You will probably need to snapshot them for them to survive properly, but yeah. Crows should be good. If you want to start a build in 1.2, assuming that nothing drastic changes for this build, this is probably the best Primalist starter that I've ever played. Yeah. Number 1, you stack mana regen. Number 2, you win the game. Easy. It's just as easy as that. As you can see, it has easy mapping. Basically what I'm doing, I'm holding down Warcry. I'm casting Maelstrom every few seconds when I have my 3 stacks of Lagon Slumber. And when I get to an objective, or if I get to this guy here, I just stand still. Boom, boom, boom. Good health, good ward. Like, look at this ward. Like, almost 4k ward. Wall of Nothing is so amazing on this. Actually crazy. But yeah, don't judge me on the speed of this build, because I don't have good boots, okay? I don't have movement speed on my boots. You do want to have tier 7 movement speed on your boots. It is the most important stat. Movement speed, people only think that it's like for efficiency. It's not just for efficiency. Movement speed is defense. Movement speed and haste on any build is an absolute giga stat for defense, because it reduces the amount of reaction time that you need to avoid a certain attack. Like, if I could have 300% movement speed on every build, I would. Okay? So go for movement speed on the boots. Most important stat in the entire game. And I'll close in on that statement. Thank you so much for being here, guys. I will release a lot more LE content. I am back, and I'm very much looking forward to 1.2. Hope to see you guys all in the next video.